Right, back for the second video. Back at the Jeep. Jeep Cherokee 2.2 diesel. We're going to change the vacuum pump seal today because of a wee oil leak. So I'll show you the oil leak now. Okay, so if you own a Jeep or an Alfa Romeo with a 2.2 litre engine, chances are you might spot a little bit of oil running down in here, along there, possibly dripping onto the exhaust and making a bit of a smell. So if I take this cover off, this is your vacuum pump, this circular thing here, and it is held on by 1, 2, we'll see better angle, 3, and 4th bolt is in there. Now they have an Allen key head on them. These two fairly simple to get at. Bottom two not so easy, but not a nightmare. So for this we're going to need to remove this. We're going to need a screwdriver with a socket head, a socket adapter with an Allen key. I'll try and find out what size that is. A small ratchet and a good old-fashioned Allen key. So fairly simple to take off, so I'll be back with you in a second when I start removing it. Okay, so we're going to start by taking off or loosening these two. This is fairly handy. Just put the ratchet on, check it's going the right way. Well, there we go. And you'll pretty much be able to screw those straight on out. The ones in here, it's a little bit more awkward. So we'll get the Allen key that is the right size. I'll put these on over here. So the Allen key fits, but this is very slow because you get one turn and then you have to reconnect and get another turn and so on and so forth. So I'll be back with you whenever I get the pump off. Okay, so we've got the two bottom bolts out. They're the hardest. These two still remaining. This is your vacuum line to your brakes. You push this little grey clip down and pull. You hear the clunk? So we're going to tuck that up there. If it stays, it may stay, it may not. Usually fights, but there we go. So take these out now. Now, one crucial thing to think about. That's positive for your battery. That is earth to the negative. I'm using a screwdriver with a rubber handle, but there's a bit of metal at the end. Do not link that to that. That will end badly. So we'll take this one out. There's this two nuts. So that goes there, and then your vacuum pump will be tiny shake and it'll slide out very carefully. There we go. Right, now I'll be back with you in a second. Okay, this is the vacuum pump removed, so you can see where we were having issues with oil leaking down here along that seam. If air coming in would blow it down here, round this, it would drip down in here and drip onto follow the pipes and drip onto the exhaust, and then you'd get an oil smell. So symptoms of a vacuum pump seal failing could be oil under the car, possibly the smell of burning oil, or especially if you notice oil seeping around this seam around here. Now, you might also get this if you spilled oil when you were filling it, but since I didn't, I know this is coming from here. Pay attention to these two holes here. These are where it bolts in. Now, these are the upper bolts, and you'll notice there's none behind those. Those are just a threaded bit of cast. These holes here are actually threaded right into the engine. So I'm going to show you another thing that you need to do when you're changing this seal. This is the back of our vacuum pump. This is the wee bit of the cog joint onto the engine. These are the lower bolts that I was telling you about. Right, now this is the gasket. I will clean this up and reuse it because I actually installed this yesterday and had to take it back off because I learned something. These are our upper bolts. Now, do you remember I was saying to pay attention to the lower bolts because they're threaded right through? Well, there you can see the oil, you can see the thread locker, but oil has come past the thread locker and was leaking out through the bolt holes. So we're going to seal that with Loctite 577. I'll be back to you in a minute. Okay, so we've now cleaned the face, and to clean the bolt holes I've used a cotton bud or a Q-tip carefully in and out to get rid of the oil. Now I'm going to put a tiny bit of Loctite 577 into the lower holes, and this is to seal against the oil that may come out through the bolt holes. And I do mean a tiny bit, because remember these holes go into the engine. We don't want to put Loctite into our oil. That would be bad. Right. Now the upper ones doesn't matter because when we fit the pump it'll become clear. So that's Loctite 577 for the lower holes. Now we're going to take our pump, our new gasket, and I will link or put in the description the part number. This costs about £60 sterling from Jeep, or you can get the exact same part by Fiat UK for about 23. It is the exact same part, two different prices. So I'll fit that on. I'll actually leave this here till I get my bolts. So I've cleaned these bolts with brake cleaner, cleaned off all the Loctite. So you see the way they're nice and shiny, no old Loctite. So all ready to go. Now for the upper holes, we're going to get Loctite. For the upper holes, we're going to use Loctite 243 because they are not sealing. They are purely, the Loctite's purely stop vibration on those. So we dab out, perfect. Tiny bit into the hole, but not much. I know there's going to be somebody who's going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. Wrong order, but I don't care. So, our gasket's fitted on. Now what we want to do is, you'll notice there's two holes, or two stubs, and those match on the end of the engine. So we're going to line that up, we're going to push this into position. Obviously not just lined up perfect, but here out. Must be a wee bit further around. Like that. See now. I'm not sure if that's set properly, so I'm going to take it back out and check. Now, we get our top 2 bolts, and we shall put a tiny bit of Loctite onto the threads. Not a lot, just a tiny bit. Perfect. And we'll set them. Now, we're not tightening those, we're just screwing them up a wee bit. We'll do the same now, put a bit of Loctite onto the threads. These are the ones the oil can seep through. Now, these are slightly more difficult to put in. And one little trick that you can do sometimes that'll help speed this in. So if you take your socket, but just your socket, you can put it on, it lets you grab the Allen key and screw it in just that wee bit quicker. I'd have to get that screwed in a wee bit further first, but we'll get that. I'll join you when I've got this finished. Okay, so we've installed the bolt here, these 2 bolts, and they're all tightened up. I'm sure there's a torque setting, but I'm not sure what it is, so they're tightened up sweet, but not murder tight. We've reinstalled our vacuum tube, and all that's left to do now is we need to wait for about half an hour to Loctite sets, because we're not too worried about top 2 again. This is just Loctite to stop the screws rotating or rattling out, but the bottom ones both stop them rotating out or rattling out, and also to seal the threads. So I want to let that set, so better to leave it, and I'll get back to you in a wee bit. So we're back. So we've waited for an hour and we've run the engine, and we no longer have any oil leaks underneath. So that's what's involved in changing a vacuum pump seal on a 2.2 litre diesel Cherokee.